Now, you've heard of Eve. It's one of the more famous games on the PC, but it's essentially a spreadsheet analyzer game.
What? What is a spreadsheet analyzer game?
It's literally a spreadsheet that you play. That's Eve. Eve is a game where it's all about being the spreadsheet.
I am so confused already. I have no idea what we're talking about.
Eve is a game about being a spreadsheet.
Yeah, you said that, but it doesn't mean that it makes any sense, though.
You have businesses and pilots and clones and corporations and all sorts of stuff, and essentially the idea is to become the richest in various ways and own the most stuff.
Oh, well, that actually sounds fun. A lot more fun than I'm a spreadsheet.
But the thing is, it's a spreadsheet game. It's very, very complicated, and quite frankly, one of the hardest games to get into. But also one of the ones that when people get into it, they end up playing it for decades. I mean, the game is so involved that they have a literal council where they fly you out to Reykjavik, and you can decide on actual stuff inside the game. They have statues. I mean, like, it's a pretty big deal.
So you mean like in real life they'll fly you out, or you can fly out and give your thoughts and opinions about the game?
No, like, you can be elected to a council.
A real life council.
A real-life council, and they will fly you out to Reykjavik, and then you get to vote on actual stuff, but it all takes place in the game.
That is so awesome. Well, the Iceland part isn't very awesome, but everything else, I mean, that's really cool, man. It's like the nerdiest thing I've ever heard.
It is incredible. Again, they have a statue which has the name of every character up until that point that had ever existed on it. I mean, like, it's insane. This is one part of the Eve universe, and that is the fighters that are zooming around shooting each other, which in Eve itself are basically invisible.
So is this a space combat game? Is that what it is?
Yes, this is a space combat game. This is not the spreadsheet simulator. This is just the dogfighting section.
Oh, I see. Very, very cool.
So this is Eve Valkyrie Warzone. That is the full title of it. And Eve Valkyrie was a VR-only version, and then Eve Valkyrie Warzone, which just came out, is a VR or non-VR version.
Right, so I'm assuming that you're playing, well, I know that you're playing the VR version. How does this stack up with other games? Because I know sometimes that the larger titles, like, isn't Eve sort of a AAA type thing, or how would you describe that?
That's a tough question. I would say Eve is large enough and makes enough money to be classified as AAA, but I also think some people would look at it and go, I don't know that I would really call that a AAA title.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting here, because some AAA titles that have went VR have been really, really disappointing. How does this one stack up against them?
This is a lot of fun, and I like it. I really do like it. I also enjoy the non-VR version, which we did on a live stream for a CCP Wednesday thing. That's the company that made the game.
Yeah, I totally remember. I thought that was in VR. I don't know why I'm remembering it that way, but you were playing the non-VR version that day?
Yes. The core gameplay is all around a multiplayer dogfighting mode, where you might have to go and drop off a drone and then protect the drone for a period of time to capture a zone, or you might have to drop off a drone to destroy something in order to be able to attack a capital ship, or it may just be straight up 4v4s or whatever.
I like the way that the cockpit looks, but is there a heads-up display that does anything? I mean, I know that you can see your enemies, but most flight simulators or dogfighters that I played before have a lot more information on the screen than I'm seeing right now. Do you know what I mean?
There's not a whole lot there, but there's enough. You can see your shields, your health. You can see where your enemies are. You have a map that you can look at.
Oh, I didn't see the shields and health.
Yeah, and if you really want to, you can always look over to your left, and there will be a kill feed there, so you can see whatever kill feed you're looking for. There's enough information, I think, and it doesn't get overloaded.
Well, yeah, I'm totally wrong. I'll admit, because I'm not a VR player, every time I see something in VR, I never feel like I'm looking at it the right way. I always feel like I'm just looking at something that I don't quite understand. Because I imagine for a VR player with a headset on, everything probably looks completely different than it would for me. Like you used the word immersive a couple of minutes ago. I feel like when I watch these things, I don't quite understand what exactly you are seeing. Like, is everything super up close? Does it look kind of 3D? Do you have to actually turn your head left to see that kill feed? Do you actually have to turn your head right to see the fuel and the armor? Or can you just see exactly what I'm seeing in this footage?
Every time you're watching a VR video, every single time, you're watching what it puts onto a 2D screen. This is never a good, perfect representation of what you're going to see in VR, ever. Never has been. There are a lot of differences between what you're seeing on the screen and what you see in VR. For one, the graphics are completely different. They're not being handled the same at all, right? So in many cases, the video that you see with a VR recording is significantly worse than what you actually see in game.
Oh, well, that explains a lot of why I've been sort of skeptical about VR for some of the games that I've seen, because some of them I look at them and I think, oh my god, this just looks garbage graphically, but perhaps the video, the footage, isn't actually a representation of what you're actually seeing with the headset on. So I'm glad I brought that up, because maybe it clears it up for some of our viewers that don't own a headset but like to watch the VR vids.
It is important, especially with Eve, because Eve has a desktop monitor mode, the spectator mode that you're seeing now, which is, quite frankly, kind of ugly. And it is kind of ugly in that it is not particularly well shown. And the reason why they do that is because you're not just rendering it once. If you put it on the screen, you're rendering it twice, because you're also rendering it in the headset.
Wow, that sounds like you need a super beefy computer to do that sort of thing.
Well, yeah, because then when you record it, you are rendering it 3 times. So it can be very, very, very taxing on a computer to do that. And that's how come you don't always get the best, incredible representation of what it looks like in VR on a recording.
I see.
This is actually quite a pretty game, and the traditional version of it, the non-VR version of it, is absolutely gorgeous. And when you're in the VR headset, it's fantastically immersive and attractive and very, very cool.
Right. On the stream, when I watched it, it was a very, very pretty game. It was a very nice looking, graphically pleasing game. So even in VR, I'm assuming it's that pretty. It's just in a more immersive environment. That makes me want a headset more than anything then, because I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, when you're in these headsets, you have to remember that what you're seeing on the screen is 2 eyes being represented as one image. So you're missing some of that immersiveness. It's really difficult to relay the feeling of being in VR to somebody who's watching it on a 2D screen, and that's what we try to do, and it's very, 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 very difficult. In order to explain the difference, I had seen VR stuff, and I wasn't particularly interested in buying a VR headset until I put one on, and I played for like 10 minutes in a Microsoft store. I put down my money and bought it same day, immediately after taking it up.
Wow, so it had that much of an impression on you. That says a lot.
I truly believe that anybody goes and puts on a Vive or an Oculus, specifically the Oculus Touch, and gets to experience what VR is like, they're going to buy it. It is not they might like, they're going to buy it. I really truly believe that, because it is such a different thing. And hopefully enough people go out and do that over the next coming years that we see this start to expand and grow bigger and be more awesome and all these cool things. I mean, the reason why we don't have AAA titles coming out every month for VR is because people are afraid to take that step, even if there are 7 million headsets out there.
Yeah, and with the way that the pricing has come down lately, that encourages people to go out and buy them more. There's still enough out there right now with AAA titles that are kind of putting their foot in the water, testing the waters out a bit with VR, but not necessarily going all in, you know? And I think over the next couple of years that we'll probably see more larger companies start to get more into it once they see how promising it could be, and when people do actually start buying them, when there's more than 7 million headsets, which that's a lot already. That's a huge market to have. It's just not as big as, you know, how many gamers are there in the world with a console? That's probably an amazing number.
Yeah, and that's the thing also is a lot of those people, that 7 million people who have a headset, a lot of them are PlayStation VR players, which is actually perfect for Eve Valkyrie because you primarily are seated. You're not getting up and moving around. So you can sit there with a controller just fine.
Yeah, and if it has the multiplayer going on, then that would be great because PlayStation has the online multiplayer stuff. The community for that is already there, and if there were a lot of people with PSVR, then they would have people to play with.
Yes, so PSVR, fantastic idea for Eve. Very, very cool to be able to have that there. I think that... So you can go ahead and play this in PSVR today. You can get online, play with friends, you can jump in there. It's a really good design for PSVR. So there's a lot there in this game. There's a lot that you can do, and it's really very worth it. I like the game a lot. Now, this has a similar price to a AAA VR title in that in Fallout or Doom VFR, in that it is $30, which is... When we're talking VR on the pricier side of things, there tends to not be a whole lot of $30 games. And in this case, I think it's worth it if you like dogfighting, because that's what you're going to be doing 99% of the time. Yes, there are a couple of single-player missions, but they're 5 or 10 minute experiences. Yes, there are some various random daily missions and things like that that you can get into, but generally speaking, you're going to be in multiplayer playing against other players in dogfights.
I love dogfighting, so it interests me. I would pay $30 for this looking at it, because I do like the style of game, and it looks finished. You know, it doesn't look like one of those games that I've seen before where it's kind of a work in progress and you're going to pay your money, but not necessarily feel like you're getting the full potential of the game. This looks like it's ready to go. It's a finished game. I think it would be a lot of fun. And like I said, I love dogfighting, man. When the when Ace Combat comes out, the new one, and they have VR for that, you have to try it for me. You have to.
I will consider it. At $29.99, I think it's worth it if you like these type of games. I enjoy them. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think it's fantastic that you get to play it in either VR or not VR, and I've played them both for different reasons. Additionally, it's a great game if you have a PSVR, because first off, it's probably the most AAA title you're going to get out of the PSVR at this point. Ubisoft's games do not come anywhere near this.
Well, Ubisoft games are garbage, though.
Fair enough. Finally, though, this game is also from a company that loves making games and loves making them good. This company will focus on a game for decades. They'll fly people out to Iceland. That's how serious they are about their games. So you're getting in with somebody who's going to actually make a good game and keep it good for a pretty long time. Therefore, I absolutely think it's worth it. Brax thinks it's worth it too, because he loves dogfighting. But he is a southerner, so it makes sense.
Not that kind of dogfighting.
It makes sense, being a Falcons fan. That's all I'm going to say. If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, don't like it. But if you did like it, go ahead and watch another one up in the corner. And as always,
we'll see you on the next one.